Yes, up to a stage you can fix it through
If
technology.
the Ahund leave tomorrow, it doesn't solve the water and electricity crisis.
I don't think so.
Bankruptcy.
It takes you a long time to build power plants. It takes you a long time to change the consumption pattern. It takes you a long time to fix issues. And you think the rest of the world would be also your friend and they all come to rescue you and help you? No. Mahsa Amini was an excuse for people to express their anger, their frustration, their madness. Governments don't want to get into this situation. Like water outage, power outage is not something you would welcome after a war in your country, after a lot of other problems. When this has happened, it's very real. If you love Iran, you cannot dismiss this problem. Environment is not a luxury thing.
Well, hi there. Welcome to episode 388 of Rook. I'm Jian. Water is the new oil. So if the last century was shaped by wars for oil, this century may be shaped by wars for water. And Iran is the preview. Maybe water is the new oil. You know, for more than a century, oil has been the commodity that fuels the world. It still is. Nations rise and fall on its price. Fortunes are made from its flow. Wars have been fought in its name. But while we've been watching the oil rigs, something more fundamental has been slipping away. Something more essential, as you may know. Something we've taken for granted. Water. Maybe water is the new oil. Maybe the most precious resource of this century isn't black gold, but clear blue. Maybe the fight of the future isn't for barrels, but for rivers. And if you want a glimpse of that future, look to Iran today. Reservoirs collapsing, rivers drying, hydropower plants stalling, farmers, students, families in the streets chanting for their basic rights, water, electricity, life. And here's the thing, the water crisis in Iran is not just a local tragedy, it is a preview. Maybe water is the new oil, because it's not only Iran. Cape Town almost ran dry. California bakes through drought and fire. Southern Europe rations water in the summer heat. Even here in Canada, land of lakes and rivers, glaciers are melting, lakes are shrinking, summers are hotter than ever. We like to believe the taps will always turn on, but maybe water is the new oil. And here's the thing, this isn't just about thirst, it's about trust. In Iran, the wells are empty, but so is faith in leadership, corruption, mismanagement, short-term greed, bankruptcy, not only of water, but of hope. And when people demand water, they're demanding more than rivers. They're demanding dignity. They are demanding freedom. This is a conversation we're going to have on today's episode with one of the foremost voices on this issue in the world today, Professor Kaveh Madani. If the last century was shaped by wars for oil, this one might be shaped by wars for water. And Iran is the preview, a warning for the world, a reminder that the most basic resource of all, the one that we have so casually taken for granted, is the one we cannot live without. It's going to be necessary to hear this urgent call before the globe comes to a final boil. Water is the new oil. It's September 11, 2025. This is Rook. Hi there. Welcome to episode 388 of Rook. I'm Jian. Salam dostan aziz. Tudu besham. I hope you're doing well wherever you're tuning in from around the world, around this crazy world that's on fire. Okay, coming up on this episode of Rook, as per my opening essay, Professor Kaveh Madani joining me here in the Rook studio, one of the foremost experts in the world on water, on environment, and governance. If that sounds dry to you, it isn't. He's a very interesting guy and an interesting speaker if you've not seen him before. He's been sounding the alarm on Iran's water bankruptcy, as he calls it, for years. He did that TED Talk. It was a TEDx talk, Quiche TEDx talk, exactly 10 years ago, talking about water. And at that point, it seemed like this fanciful, this young guy, just this environmentalist making his case. It's so much more relevant now. It's his siren. His call has become more and more relevant each year, unfortunately, as this water bankruptcy continues. He joins me again here on Rook to talk about what may now be an irreversible crisis. We'll discuss the collapse of Iran's water and power systems and what this means for daily life and political stability, and why the water crisis in Iran is not just a local tragedy, but a preview for the rest of the world. That's coming up in just a few moments. But first, a little word about a big event set to arrive. A little word about Rook Live 5. This is the next big edition of our live series. It is officially set Thursday, October 2nd, 2025. I guess that's exactly 3 weeks from today. And this time it's happening at a brand new, larger venue, the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts. We are thrilled to announce that this year's Rook Media Icon Award will go to one of the greats, our dear friend, the legendary Iranian-Canadian guitar virtuoso Babak Amini. He will be on stage. Maybe he'll even perform. The lineup joining us on stage, Shali Zomorodi, the beloved TV personality and anchor. Thrilled that she's flying in for this. Namito, the internationally acclaimed DJ and music producer. Kaveh Madani, the legendary musician, son of Kurosh, as you may know. Navid Rezvani, the award-winning hip-hop dancer and choreographer. I think this show is going to have a lot of exciting elements. I think he's going to blow people away. This is the first time Navid is coming to North America, and I can't wait to have him on stage at Rook Live 5. Navid Rezvani, Dr. Mashad Koladuzan. I mean, I've practiced the Mashad. I got that part, but Koladuzan. She's the brilliant neuroscientist, social media star. I'm thrilled to have her on the show. I've been wanting to have her on Rook for a while, and this is a good opportunity in front of a live audience. Rabina, the rising singer-songwriter performing live. And we are just adding somebody as well to the bill. Maybe a DJ, maybe somebody who's well-known that I can't tell you about right now, but will also be on stage, I think. Tickets officially went on sale 3 weeks ago. They are pretty much sold out already on the main floor. The VIP is totally sold out. But I can tell you this, as of today, as of a few hours ago, we have opened the balcony. We weren't sure we were going to open the balcony. The full floor is now sold out. So we've opened the balcony. There are tickets available, including some really good seats. The front row or two of the balcony are actually great seats at this theater. So to find tickets, you can either go to the website of the theater itself or go to our Instagram account, which is Rook Media, and click on the bio. It leads you to tickets there. Rook Live 5, Thursday, October 2nd, Richmond Hill Center for the Arts. Bigger space, bigger night, lineup to remember. All right, let's get to our feature interview. Today's edition of Rook is brought to you in part by I Welcome. I Welcome is the one and only Iranian-Canadian company in premium tour, travel, and limo transportation. I Welcome redefines every journey with a modern fleet and professional drivers, ensuring that whether you're enjoying a scenic city tour, traveling for business, or arriving in style at a special event, you experience unmatched comfort and reliability. With I Welcome, your ride becomes a luxurious extension of your lifestyle. I've had the pleasure of riding in one of these luxury cars that Amina and his team have at I Welcome. And if you are anywhere in the Greater Toronto area, you must see them for your travel needs. You can find them at iwelcome.ca. Once again, that's iwelcome.ca. All right, let's get to our feature guest. This is episode 388 of Rook. And today we're tackling, once again, a subject that is urgent, frightening, deeply consequential for Iran and for all of us in the diaspora, and frankly for the entire world. The title of this edition of Rook perhaps says it all. No water, no power, Iran's harsh new reality. So in recent months, Iran has faced a convergence of crises that strike at the most basic elements of life: dwindling water resources, collapsing dams, and a failing power grid. Hydropower is faltering as reservoirs dry up, while record heat waves drive demand for cooling and push an already fragile system to the brink. This is not only an environmental crisis, it is political, it's social, it is an existential one. And as many are now saying, it may no longer be reparable. Well, to help us understand this, not just the facts and figures, but the broader implications, we turn once again to one of the foremost voices in the world on this subject, Professor Kaveh Madani. He is a scientist, a systems analyst, and a former deputy head of Iran's Department of Environment. Currently, he serves as the director of the United Nations University Institute for Water, Environment, and Health. And he's become one of the most prominent international figures explaining the links between environmental collapse, governance, and social unrest in Iran and beyond. He's joined us on Rook before, of course. I'm very glad to have him back in our studio for this critical conversation. Joining me in the Rook studio, Professor Kaveh Madani. Hello, sir.
Hello. Thanks for having me back.
Nice to have you back on the show. It's never fun. We can't just talk about, hockey scores or the latest movies or when you come on the show, it's it's always about crises, bankruptcy. This is the weight you carry.
Your fault, but you don't call me when the wind is blowing and it's raining out there.
Next Ebby concert, I'll bring you in just to talk about your favorite music. It occurs to me on this note, actually, of the weight that you carry. You first came to my attention, probably to a lot of people's attention, because you did this TEDx talk back in 2015, the Quiche TEDx talk, which now seems prehistoric, but it was 10 years ago. I mean, it was a decade ago, and you were talking about water. And what seemed like, oh, there's a cute guy, Iranian guy who's talking about the environment, what seemed kind of twee or important but not urgent at the time has gotten so successful was your talk that it's gotten a lot worse. This is the power of your talk. It's gotten 10 times worse in the last 10 years. Of course, it's a dark thing to kid about. But and you're also very Rook about saying that to a certain extent there's no way to fix it. So that's an interesting, before we actually get into the topic, it's an interesting place to be where you're one of the foremost global experts on something that you are actively saying is not reparable.
Yeah, maybe so that's the difference between activism and realism. So reality, as a scientist, I feel also responsible to tell the truth as doctors do, right? So there's a big difference if you're in your 80s and decide to fix some damages to your body, and when you're in your 50s or earlier. I think it is sad, and as you said, in 2015 it sounded nice but cute and irrelevant, maybe even the intelligence community, defense community, national security community thought I'm just distracting the public from what matters the most. But now this becomes itself a national security issue, a serious problem for the country. And a lot of people call me and say, how do you feel about your projections coming true? And I'm like, actually, I don't enjoy seeing people feeling miserable, right?
Well, there's got to be an element of "I told you so" about it.
I believe it or not, I say I wish I was wrong. I wish that those projections were wrong, or at least it would have taken longer to get this to this stage. And then as I call it even water bankruptcy, not water crisis, because I believe we're past this stage of a crisis, because in a crisis...
But it's a bit of a paradox, to be working at something that you don't necessarily believe is fixable. Does it not feel like banging your head against the wall over and over again?
No, so that if you're a bad businessman, and you keep taking more loans and using more credit cards, and you come to me for an advice, I'm going to tell you that you have to file for bankruptcy. Your credit score is going to get hit. Some of the people would be extremely mad at you, but it's better to do it now than later, because the damages would be less. Right. So it's about mitigating plus adapting. Mitigating what you can still mitigate, adapting to the new reality and the new normal. So that's what I'm saying.
And not going and buying lunch today might mitigate some of your losses, but it's not going to end the bankruptcy. Just like turning off the power for a few hours in Tehran is not going to fix things, which we should get into. So you've talked about your claim being Iran in particular is in a state of water bankruptcy, not just a crisis. Bring us up to speed, Kaveh. How dire is the water shortage right now, especially in key reservoirs, aquifers?
So let's do it backward. When water is short, the first sector we cut from is the environment. We first stop water delivery to the wetlands, rivers, and different ecosystems dependent on it. After that, we go to the farmers. We cut water from the farmers. After that, it's industry, and after that is the urban sector. The urban sector in the urban or domestic water sector in Iran uses about 6 to 7% of water. Now we are seeing water shortages in Tehran, where the residential areas are being impacted. So think about what I said. Cut from the environment, cut from the farmers, cut from industry. That's your last resort. When you cut from the urban population, it means that you have nothing left. Now, let's go to the reservoirs. You look around, reservoirs are empty. The reservoirs around Tehran that we remember is full. We skied on those, right? Those are gone. Amir Kabir or Karaj Reservoir, a famous one, is gone. Latiyan, like all those reservoirs. What has happened under the ground is even worse. The aquifers that fed Tehran, and actually for a long time were playing a very important role. For many Tehranis are not aware of it. They all could notice the surface water, but not the groundwater. The groundwater level is low. Land subsidence was happening. There were alarms, but now there is no water. And believe me, governments don't want to get into this situation. Like water outage, power outage is not something you would welcome after a war in your country, after a lot of other problems. When this has happened, it's very real. They're desperate. There is no other solution.
In July, the New York Times, end of July, so about a month and a half ago, printed a story saying water supplies for Tehran are predicted to run out in just a few weeks. So you're saying that's not alarmism, that's the reality.
It is a reality. I was one of those people who said that the day zero might come very soon. We're still hopeful. End of Shahrivar, end of September is the end of the water year. So the new water year starts Aval Mehr, or in October. So that's, fortunately hydrology doesn't follow our
Right.
calendar. And then
what is a water year?
Water year is like the wet season,
Meaning
so
that there'll be rain in October?
hopefully, there's a shift in
Okay.
this year is a dry year, and we're in a drought.
But that's
Iran
been like
is-
5 years in a row or something.
Exactly. Now, we can be hopeful that after October we enter a normal year or a wet year. But if you're unlucky, that might be another dry year, and then I don't know what's going to happen.
So in terms of, other than things just getting worse, your words being validated over and over again, the big difference since the last time you were on the show a couple of years ago is that on top of water scarcity, we're now talking about declining hydropower and electricity shortages in Iran. Talk to us about the implications of that.
Okay, so that's
Which are interlinked, right?
They
Water
are
and
inter-
electricity are the same kind of? Or?
I mean, to an extent. So roughly put, nationally, only 12-13% of electricity comes from the hydro source. So hydropower doesn't play a major role in Iran's electricity supply in terms of total percentage, but it does play a very critical role in terms of providing the base load, satisfying the base load. Iran also uses a lot of natural gas to produce electricity. Iran is one of the countries with the biggest amount of natural gas reserves in the world. Iran is not a country with one of the biggest water reserves in the world. There are two different things. When I said bankruptcy, I said it doesn't matter how much water you have. If you're a bad business person, you go bankrupt, right? So it doesn't matter where you start from. Iran has managed to even bankrupt its natural gas system as one of the top owners of natural gas in the world. That means that in the cold season, there's also shortage or blackout of natural gas. Natural gas is also used for heating in Iran. So and then also it feeds the power plants. And there's a shortage of that. There is electricity shortage. When there's electricity shortage, you're desperate. You release water from the reservoir, try to fix one problem, and another problem emerges. So then let's imagine a life of a Tehrani or Khuzestani, right? Say like Tehran is not as hot as Khuzestan. One of the past episodes we were talking about Khuzestan. Now Tehran, the richest, portion of the population, richest city in the country, most influential in terms of politics and most powerful. So heat is crazy. We have really, really hot days, and you need to use the cooler in Iran, and the type of coolers in what we call cooler in Iran are the old ones that use water actually for cooling, also for humidity. So there is no cooling system. So because it needs water and power. Some units don't need the water, don't use the ones that run on water. But in any case, there is no electricity for cooling. Hospitals face problems. Patients, like people who are sick at home, connected to oxygen at home, the machines are not working. The electricity outage. Iran didn't have these problems. A lot of people couldn't imagine a country like Iran having 99.9% of urban water coverage. That we're talking about 70% of the population living in Iran. High quality water. Quality of water in a lot of urban areas in Iran were actually much better than many other places in Europe, in North America. And now we're people can't take shower, can't go to the bathroom because of lack of water, because of lack of electricity. Some systems also work based on electricity. So if you have a pump to use, even your pump is not working. Right. So
is it, if you'll excuse the colloquialism, is it fair to say shit's getting real? In other words, as real an issue as this was a few years ago, it wasn't necessarily an urgent issue for some of us who have family in the urban areas of Iran and the wealthier, it was something that was consigned to the rural south or Khuzestan. But now Tehranis are feeling this, are seeing this, and of course power outages and that type of thing are driving this home.
Yeah, and power outages are national. They're not even local, because we have Iran has a national grid. So the whole country is in this crisis together now. This is no longer the poor's problems, the poor's problem, the rural communities problem, the farmers problem, right? Even in Isfahan, when when we were talking about Zayan Durud and the protests of farmers, it was still farmers. It was not the Isfahani residential, community suffering from this. Now it's everywhere. That's why it's getting attention, and people are now kind of playing the old videos and old stuff that we've said, and like something new has been told. No, this is a serious problem, and the urgency was there for me, for a lot of other experts. But of course, the day-to-day life had not been interrupted. Now this is the interruption of normal life. Quality of life is being impacted. The Iranians have suffered from sanctions, have suffered from a lot of things. We're going through movements, protests, everything. You were going home, you could shower. You were going home, you could turn on your TV and watch the news. Your Wi-Fi was working. Now that's not the case.
You posted 3 days ago on your Instagram, the greatest strategic mistake when it comes to bankruptcy is the refusal to accept failure. The more the call to failure is delayed, the more irreparable damages will be added to the costs of compensation. Talk to me about that. It's a call for accountability. It suggests that was there a period of denial?
It is still.
Denial? I mean, I noticed Pezeshkian has said that there's a crisis now.
But yesterday, Mayor of Tehran said, "Oh, we have enough water. Water is coming in. This much water is in, and we can feed, supply water. We have enough water supply for 24 million people."
Well, why would he say that?
Because he doesn't know even the mass balance. He doesn't. They don't understand. Like, they don't count evapotranspiration. They don't count the water that is needed for other uses. They're thinking only about the water use in in a residential unit. So they have no understanding of the system, and it's a political fight. So denial is the best case, and that's something we see around the world. Politicians gamble with your future. They're hopeful that there would be rain after October and things would be washed away and people would forget. And indeed, people forget. As the moment that something new comes in, remember again, 2019-20, we had destructive floods across the whole country. So when the floods were going on, there were like people, "Oh, where's this Kaveh Madani guy who was saying Iran would be dry?" Right? I mean, parliament members were attacking me, saying "Didn't you say there would be?" Yeah. So there is denial out there, and hands up is not. You have to say we have failed. You have to say that.
So even now, as you said, the mayor of Tehran, there's people saying that there isn't an issue.
Yeah, and it's a blame game. Like, "Oh, you don't know how to manage it. Give the water to me.
When you
I
say
can
refusal to accept failure, so presumably the droughts are not somebody's failure. That's just act of God. What do you call that?
Yeah.
What is the failure?
Very good question. So that's another thing, right? So there are different levels of acceptance, right? You can again be a bankrupt business person and talk about the failure in this part, very small action or mission that you had, or the failure of your partner, or the failure of the other, the buyer, or this or that, the importer, the exporter. So blame parts of the system and don't understand that it's your business model that is wrong. It's your judgment and your perceptions that are wrong. Your foresight has issues. So what I'm saying is that you got to understand that your development engine is not functional. Your development model is problematic, and you have over the years increased the pressure of your economy on the water sector. And unless you address that, you cannot solve the water problem. So what they do now, but this is, again, like a bankrupt person, what do? Let's use another credit card. Give me some more loan. Kaveh, can you please give me some more money? I'm going to fix this issue. Let's go bring a little more water from Talegan. Let's do this. Let's desalinate water. Let's give people some new ACs and fix this issue, fix that issue. These are like plastic surgery for a patient that is who is suffering from cancer. You have cancer, you need chemotherapy. To do that, to start that, first you have to admit and accept that you're suffering from cancer. Yeah. Then you have to have the courage to go through the process. It's painful. It's ugly. Like you lose your hair. You have to have money and insurance.
But if there's a process that we can go through, then it is reparable. When you say beyond reparable, that's your quote in terms of the combination of infrastructure failures, systemic management, mismanagement, and the droughts and all of that. You're saying beyond reparable. I mean, if a cancer, to use your analogy, somebody has cancer and you say, well, that's beyond reparable, then they're in one of those situations where go to Disneyland, enjoy your last 6 months because you're going to die. You don't say, if you say, well, actually, here's what we need to do. Chemo, stop smoking. I don't know.
What stage? If you're stage 4 and everything has gone wrong, indeed, I would say spend more time with your family and go to the places you love. You're not going to have more than 6 months. But if you're early on, it doesn't
sound like you believe it's beyond reparable. It sounds like
No. I say there are parts of the damages that cannot be recovered. Done. Some of the damages are
what are those points?
irreversible. There is no way you can recover the level of storage or water in aquifers. There's no way you do that. Land subsidence, you're not going to be able to reverse the land, like push it back up. It has gone down, done. Some of the ecosystems, some of the wetlands are gone, done. Some of the biota, like different flora and fauna, like they're gone. They're extinct. They're done. Bye bye. So what I'm saying is we can still keep this patient alive if we take action today. Doing chemo, starting chemo immediately is what you need. You're not going to fix all the organs. You're never going to be like a 20-year-old or a 15-year-old. You're not going to be able to, go, compete in Olympics. But you can stay alive, and you can still drive, and you can be an independent person. So that's what we are talking about. Some of the damages are irreversible.
So in terms of the how to fix. Not the drought, but the governance, that part. That how first of all, just because we throw terms out there like mismanagement, remind us how mismanagement or corruption or power play entrenched in these crises have blocked meaningful reform so far.
So let's go way back, look at the development path of Iran. So Iran, at some point starts having access to the oil income. It becomes, a strong economy or growing economy. Then goes into infrastructure development, builds dams, builds infrastructure. As the result, it can afford increasing its population. People become healthier, life expectancy goes up, people become educated, and so on. So if those infrastructure didn't exist, maybe we didn't even exist. Like our parents would have died at the age of 4 because of cholera. Right? So this is very important, because when we talk about things, people are like, oh, let's remove this dam and remove that dam, and every decision in the past was bad. That's not true. There was, all those infrastructure helped Iran grow. But if you overdo something, there you're in trouble. It's like if you take antibiotics too much, your kidney might stop functioning. So what happened was that Iran had an oil-based economy, and then he was using the oil income to subsidize its agriculture sector. Before the revolution, after the revolution, for the leaders of Iran, the food sector was always a problematic sector. Still, this is an issue in a lot of countries in the Middle East, and we have seen similar things across the region. Ambitious leaders who always try to fight back with the West, wrestle with the West, wrestling over the oil price and wheat price. Remember the interviews of Shah of Iran, challenging the Westerners for raising the wheat price whenever he was being questioned about the oil price, right? So that was something in his mind, and then it continued after that. It wasn't only him; it was Gaddafi, it was like the Saudis. So we see that these countries becoming more and more ambitious in becoming food self-secure and food self-sufficient, and trying to use the infrastructure to address their essentially a shortage, a physical shortage, and that's something we were born with, a shortage of water compared to the rest of the world, thinking that technology can resolve the issue. Now,
so wait, sorry, 3 steps back. So the oil sector is helping to subsidize the agriculture.
Yeah.
In other words, the agriculture of Iran, the industry is not self-sufficient. It needs the oil money to. So
in terms of food production, we are not self-sufficient. So I'm going to get to that. So it was the oil sector that could subsidize. Now, you can now argue that 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that was not the best thought. Yeah, 60 years later, it's easy to criticize history. The question is not why did you think that way to begin with? Because the California thought in the same way. Texas thought about in the same way. A lot of other countries did it in the same way, thinking that we call it hydraulic mission. The mission of humanity is to capture every drop of water that is flowing into the ocean or going into the lakes and wetlands and use it for beneficial use, beneficial purposes, producing income. That's how we ended up, killing the Aral Sea or Salt Lake in Utah and other places. So, but other countries, many others, could shift away from that bad decision. Canada, same thing, Great Lakes, all those issues, then shift, your behavior, change your development path and come up with a new solution. Now, Iran goes through a revolution. It picks up a fight with the rest of the world, or the world picks up a fight with Iran. I think it's a reinforcing loop. So now even the issue of food self-sufficiency becomes more important. Iranians go around and say, we want to become wheat self-sufficient. We want to produce our own wheat. We are going to produce everything. Everything is about independence. So use the oil money, subsidize, pay the farmers, essentially bribe them, give them cheap electricity to pump water out of the aquifer and use it for a cheap crop. Because I'm thinking it's better to produce it at home rather than importing it. While the industrial economies were investing their dollars into the industrial sector, into the service sector to produce really valuable products, and selling them to the Africans, selling them to the global South countries, selling them to the South American, and getting cheap products in return. We and many other countries in the Middle East, still many other countries in the global South, were using the oil income to subsidize the farmers, thinking that they can empower the farmers, they can protect the mustazafin, they can help them, and they can become food self-sufficient. That didn't work.
So it's been a constant Band-Aid game, a game of just. And was there a you guy? Was there a Kaveh Madani in, I don't know, in the 60s or 70s, putting up their hands saying, actually, this isn't, be careful here. We're going to run into a point. There's going to be a point where all of this runs out.
There have been, but then, all of these things are also like the reason that I'm getting attention today, or you invite me to your program, is there is a window of opportunity after every crisis. That's when the public pay attention to something. That's when the media pay attention to something. So imagine
as long as the taps are running in Tehran, it's not as much.
Or sometimes you have 4 years, 4 wet years. Now we got 5 dry years. Sometimes you get 5 wet years, and then if you have 5 wet years with floods, there are people who are arguing that we have to build more dams to protect people from floods. And that has happened, actually. There were periods that were very wet, and people thought this was the trajectory. Iran started a war with Iraq, or Iraq invaded Iran, right? So there was a war with Iraq. Then there was, the whole issue of, sanctions and all of that. So all of those are also threats. If you're the leader, do you like to listen to Kaveh Madani nagging and saying, no, this is not going to work? Or those people who say we have to withstand, we have to stand against the West. This is we can produce everything at home. We can turn this place into the first, into a self-sufficient place. Saudis became a wheat exporter in 1 year, but they destroyed their aquifer. So the ambition,
but where do you see the corruption? I mean, I know there's corruption. When do we start to see that? Because what you've described in terms of the taking the oil money and putting it into agriculture, that can be described as bad choices or even mismanagement, but that's not necessarily corruption, is it?
Corruption contributes to it, because then you decide to lie, or you have an immediate opportunity, business opportunity in the agriculture sector, and it's better to sell that idea that, yes, let's produce seeds at home, or let's do this, let's do that. So corruption becomes part of the game because there are opportunists who want to take money out of the system. But the mismanagement was beyond that, right? So it wasn't only the food sector. Agriculture, by the way, 90% of water in Iran is allocated to the agriculture sector. So that's a big number to remember. Then you have the issue of growth in population. So Iran became wealthier and healthier. So population went up. Within 2 decades after the revolution, Iran's population got more than doubled. And there were also policies about, have more kids. We want to fight Artesh Bismillahuni. We want to have more kids and all of that, right? There were also migration issues. Places like Tehran, some other metropolitans became very attractive. People started flooding those areas, right? So there are different aspects of this mismanagement, all related to the development path. Now, did corruption have an impact? Of course, anywhere in the world. To an extent, corruption exists in some places more than others. And corruption functions as a catalyst. Corruption itself is an outcome of a wrong management. Corruption is not the cause. It's a catalyst that made the situation worse, like the drought. The drought is not the cause. Climate change is not the cause. Does it have a role? Yes, it does have a role. It catalyzes the problem. A lot of other things can catalyze the problem, triggers of the problem. Tomorrow, if there is a regime change tomorrow, because of farmers getting out on the street and start chanting, or people are mad because of the electricity blackout. Are you going to say Iran regime got changed because of power outage? No, power outage was a trigger. People needed an excuse. Mahsa Amini was an excuse for people to express their anger, their frustration, their madness. We have to understand the difference between causes and catalysts.
If there hadn't been that mismanagement, if there'd been better planning, what kind of impact did the 5 years of drought have?
Still, a lot of pressure on the system. But better management creates resilience, because you get prepared for something that could have been projected. This is not the first time Iran is facing 5 years of drought in a row. So better management creates resilience. You create buffers in your system. You decide about the carryover in your in your reservoir. How much water do I carry to next year? How much water do I keep behind the dam to ensure that next year I have no problem? The gamblers don't think about next year. Politicians don't
short
think
term
about
thinking. What do I need to do right now?
Hopefully there would be rain.
Just as a sidebar, how the blackouts that are happening, say in the big cities, how effective are they? I mean, what do they actually contribute to fixing the issue?
No, the blackouts are because of the shortage. They're so it's not so it's intentional to control the load, right? So the peak load. So
how effective is that?
It's so it is effective, because then if you have control over where to turn the switch off, then your system would not collapse. But if you don't do that, then the whole system would collapse. So what you do is kind of a demand management. It's a supply and demand equilibrium. So you try to control the equilibrium, knowing that your demand or consumption is high. What you do is you superficially reduce the consumption by not giving you a chance to even turn on your light.
Yeah, but I mean, just to play devil's advocate, if somebody were to say, well, we have extreme heat and drought, so hey, everybody, we need to work on this together. 4 hours a day, we're going to turn off the electricity so that we can get through this period, and then everything gets better in October. What's wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with that. The question is, do governments around the world all have the social capital needed to ask the public to help them get away with something? We have seen, Cape Town facing day zero not too long ago, and they managed to bring down their consumption to below 50 liters a day. Some places in Tehran, we might be doing more than 200 liters a day. The issue is, and remember the COVID-19 crisis, there were governments in the world that had the capital to ask people to cooperate, wear masks, do this, do that. There were like other governments that they had to use stick and arrest and because so that's the thing. That's the problem that Iran also has on top of things, because people don't even believe the narrative of the government.
But when Tehran declares a public holiday, what is your position on that?
These are desperate actions to essentially to manage the load. It's not only that, there are different things. They even reduce the pressure of water in the system. So these games are all these actions, and I would have done that if I were in that position, because there is like a crisis management and there is a bigger bankruptcy problem, right? So there is a bankruptcy problem as a whole, and that you cannot solve it overnight. That's a long-term thing. This is like a painkiller, right? I mean, I'm gonna inject some morphine and give you something, so you kind of don't feel the pain, and then we can go. So that when people leave the city, of course, there is some reduction in electricity consumption. When you shut down the city because of air pollution, it's the same thing. Air pollution is also a bankruptcy problem. It's just your skies and air, your climate or your system doesn't have enough capacity to absorb the pollution. You have over polluted it, so then you have air pollution. So it's a bankruptcy of your nature. And then you say, okay, kids don't go to school, government employees don't go to work, and you reduce traffic, you reduce the demand for roads and reduce traffic. Things can get better.
So, from your perspective, how much is this water bankruptcy and electricity shortages shaking the regime? I mean, I know you're not you're not here as a political activist, but day-long protests, there's sit-ins, there's chants like water, electricity, life, our basic right. How much is this affecting the control and power of the regime in Iran? There are people who've come on this show in recent months who've said there won't be regime change, but there will be regime collapse based on what's going on there, and they include water and electricity as part of that and mismanagement. What is your perspective on that?
I mean, no one can project or predict a collapse, or maybe prediction is the right word. You can always, so forecasting is very hard. Backcasting is easy, right? When it happens, they're like, oh, all the signals were there. But no one knows when a collapse would happen. You can get all the signals that are bad, very strong. Something, things are fundamentally wrong. When does it collapse? How does it collapse? No one knows. What would be the trigger? What can bring people into streets? We don't know that. The issue of Iran is the misery is so much, and the problems are so many that people don't even have the bandwidth to pay attention to one or focus on one. Today you're mad at because of water. Tomorrow it's electricity. The day after is they throw a concert or cancel a concert. So every day it is something to be angry about, and that means that people lose focus. The issue that and then after some time things become normalized. That's another issue. We have seen the satellite image of Lake Urumia. Have you seen it? This was even hard to imagine. And next year guess what? We have managed to dry up and normalization becomes also a strategy, even that it happened and there is no qiyam.
But we're also seeing protests, and they span cities and demographics. There's students, there's farmers, there's truckers. There's here and there. But remember, there were people 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people were protesting for Lake Urumia, and this happened. Not much happening, not much of reaction, because people don't care. No, because they're exhausted. It's again the cancer example. If you are a person who
who have a very happy life. You're a rich kid and everything is normal, and you get cancer. It's chaotic. It's really bad, and you would react in one way. But compare that with a person who's poor, who has all sorts of problems, who is handicapped, who can't breathe, and then one other problem comes to the family. It's not as miserable as the first case, although the second one is, has less tolerance, has less bandwidth, has less resilience against it. The first one is rich, can afford it, right? The society like Iran has a hard time to even concentrate. It's like Gaza. Can you talk about birds in Gaza? When people are dying, when they're being moved around, like, you cannot talk. So sadly, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when I was talking about water, you mentioned it was cute, it was interesting. You could do something about it. The later you get to this problem, the less chance you have.
But I thought that the urgency, the fact that people are noticing this now or feeling the squeeze now, makes it facilitates addressing the issue, gives you a chance that in terms of addressing environmental issues that you wouldn't have had a few years ago.
How? The economy is so damaged and destroyed that there is no way for the government to even if they decide to do so, they cannot recover the economy unless now it's the water problem is interrelated with the sanctions problem, with the war problem, with all the uncertainty that the market has, the Iranians have. They don't know if there would be an attack tomorrow or not. Would there be a regime change? Would this, would someone be assassinated tomorrow or not? The uncertainty is huge, and the power to respond is much lower. I said, the chemotherapy, you need not only to accept this, but also you need to have the courage to go through the pain, political will, to say that my development model is not working. I'm going to give up on this ideology and that ideology, and I want to save this country. But you also need to have insurance and money to be able to go through chemo, right? It's a very expensive treatment. That also is something that they're struggling with.
What a joyful conversation.
My examples are bad.
It's like all of the metaphors are cancer, chemo, suicide, but bankruptcy. I do want to. I want to ask you about the global nature of water bankruptcy. It's very interesting. You've been talking about that a lot, especially with the UN now. But on the way there, perhaps, talk to me about, for those of us outside of Iran, in the diaspora, who might care because we have family there or because it's our heritage, etc. But I mean, to be plain about it, why should we be locked into this story? I mean, what does the water electricity collapse say about our shared identity or responsibility or future role?
Remember my argument or my persistence in saying that the damages cannot be restored. A lot of the damages are irreversible. A lot of people in the diaspora are dreaming about going home after the Islamic Republic, after a change in the Islamic Republic or whatever.
Yeah.
If there is no Iran, who cares who's running the system? If there is no water, if there are no lakes, there are no wetlands, that land is not Iran anymore. That land can't afford making its population happy. When the damages are irreversible, you gotta be extremely worried. You gotta understand how important this issue is and how much it relates to the future of Iran. If you're a political leader, if you're a political opposition figure, if you if you love Iran, you cannot dismiss this problem. Environment is not a luxury thing. You got to understand that if there is no water, you can't do anything. Just thinking that you go home and people say, oh, bring Kaveh Madani back. I was asked recently, even someone in the government said, I talked to Kaveh Madani, and they're like, okay, come home. It's like, do I have the Moses stick to like do this, and water would be, what am I going to do? Like, there's nothing you can do to fix the problem. If the ecosystem is dead, can we?
So what are we in the diaspora supposed to? What is your prescription for what we should be doing in terms of any role that we can play?
So one thing is, like, never disintegrate the environment from anything that you hear. So someone would be telling you a story about, I'm going to bring freedom to Iran. Ask that person, how are you going to resolve this issue and that issue and that issue? Don't promise that you would turn Iran into Switzerland overnight.
Right.
Tehran would never look like Geneva. Right. There is no water there. You got to think about that. So it's not like, yes, up to a stage you can fix it through technology.
If the Ahund leave tomorrow, it doesn't solve the water and electricity crisis.
I don't think so.
Bankruptcy.
It takes you a long time to build power plants. It takes you a long time to change the consumption pattern. It takes you a long time to fix issues. And you think the rest of the world would be also your friend and they all come to rescue you and help you? No. You still have to be concerned about food self-sufficiency and food self-reliance or food security or whatever. You still have to think about employment. What are you going to do with the farmers who are unemployed? How are you going to solve that problem? You want to even transfer water, let's say, from the Caspian Sea or the Persian Gulf, or how long does it take?
But I if I were to be honest, I would say I feel like the environment and environmentalism has fallen further off the agenda. There's so much going on in the world, so much horrible stuff going on in the world. You name check the wars going on, and I just don't see it. I mean, when I was a kid, we had Earth Day. Like people would, like everybody would, was involved in Earth Day. I don't even know when Earth Day is anymore. I mean, it's sometime in April that a few environmentalists care about, but it doesn't really affect the entire. So it's it feels like it's a particularly uphill battle right now.
It is, but also I think there's a difference between the rich kids environmental movement and the environmental movement I'm talking about for survival. There is a difference between, like, a situation where a youth activist is saying, fix the climate change problem for my future, than a farmer whose children are dying because of starvation. There's a big difference there. They're both after something, and we put both of them in the same basket. They're not. They're different. We're talking about survival. We're talking about the future of Iran. We're talking about keeping the resources there because we want Iran to exist. I'm arguing that when everything is destroyed, then you cannot fix these problems. They're like, there is no Iran to love. There is no Iran to run. And that is the issue. Indeed, understand that we're talking about, yes, it's an environmental resource, it's a natural resource, but it's different from what you consider woke or too different or too. I mean, indeed, I have also been saying that, like, climate change is not the primary concern of the Iranians who are thirsty. Many years ago, I was saying that, and I'm still in the UN. I'm saying the same thing, that our narratives. The narrative that we have in Toronto on Earth Day or in a park here, is different should be different from the narrative that we want, to present to the Indian farmers or people in Africa. That's the issue that we put. It's a typical thing these days. This guy is liberal. This guy is left. This guy is communist
and environmentalists unfortunately have fallen into the category for some of that's a woke thing. So we I feel like there's even a pocket of resistance that says let's not be environmentalists so we're not woke. When we talk about water bankruptcy as a more global issue, is that to say that there's a few places in the world like Iran, you just talked about India, or some places in Africa where this is a dire situation? Or is water bankruptcy really something, and forgive me for the first world privilege of the question, but is it really something that a person sitting in Canada should care about?
You should, because Saskatchewan also suffers from it. Now, again, if you're wealthier, you have more resistance, you have more resilience. But if your business model is wrong, eventually you're going to lose the battle. So in many, if you're wetter to begin with, if you're wealthier in terms of natural resources, water resources, surface water, groundwater, it takes you longer to destroy your system. But what we see is that in many places, regardless of how much water they have, the consumption is more than the available water. So you see problems in even in Saskatchewan, in Calgary, in other places, and not enough water there. You see problems in California. You see problems in the poor regions of
Canada was water rich.
It is a water rich country, but that Iran is gas rich, but still has managed to bankrupt itself. So consumption, if your consumption pattern doesn't matter, if you haven't thought enough about the implication of your consumption habits for your system, then you would eventually get into trouble. So what we see is that globally, we are seeing a lot of signs of irreparable damages, and ecosystem essentially destructions that cannot be fixed. We are seeing competition over water between users who belong to different groups, urban versus agriculture, transboundary problems, transboundary river systems, a lot of competition. And then it's not only the water sector that you got to be concerned about, it's all those other problems that are related to water. Wildfire, right? Soil moisture is low in our country, and that's why we get more frequent fires in this country. Yeah. So that is an issue, a serious issue that we got to be concerned about. So what we say is that we have two different types of water shortages or water scarcity. One is an economic water scarcity. That happens where there is water, but you don't have sufficient amount of funds to invest in infrastructure to use that water. That's what we see across, in a lot of places in Africa, a lot of places in South America, and some places in East Asia. Water is flowing, everywhere is green, lakes, rivers, everything, but women and children have to spend a lot of time walking, carrying water to fetch water. Then we have physical water scarcity. That's when you overuse your resources. Your consumption is more than the available water.
Right.
That's the physics.
That's the Iran situation.
That's the Iran situation.
And how much of an outlier is that? I mean, how many places are there in the world that are in as much trouble as Iran?
A lot of places. You'd be surprised. But even Iran, when we say Iran, as so Tehran's problem is dire. Some of the cities are doing better. Next year, things might go wrong in another location. Tehran might be doing better. So we see the same thing across the world, that some places, especially during the time of drought, are doing worse. Iran, in the Middle East, is not the worst one. Iran's situation has been better than many other countries. Some of the other countries
worse in terms of water bankruptcy.
So a lot of. To begin with, a lot of other countries didn't have the pipe system that Iran had to begin with. So we have to appreciate that this is water being taken away from the Iranians. Okay, so the Iranians had a very, very modern lifestyle, and this is being so we are now going backward in Iran. A lot of places there's no even water coverage. Municipal water coverage doesn't exist in many places. A lot of places, have been different apartments, house owners. They were using generators to provide electricity to their household. So Iran was connected to the national grid So Iran is better than some of the other Middle Eastern countries. Iran is better than Afghanistan. Iran is better than many African countries. Iran is better than many South American countries, many Asian countries, but still is in trouble. And what is sad is that the quality of life is degrading in Iran. You had all these things. I grew up with all those things. No one told me now the long showers of
and also in the
Iranians.
context of Iran, it's just another hammer hitting people in the head, right? Along with political disarray, the restriction of basic rights, the economic disarray, all of that piling on top of each other, and then all of a sudden your tap isn't working, or you're having a power outage, or blackout, or that type of thing. Well, you've seen so much, I would imagine, in the last 10 years and before that, of what is going on in Iran and around the world. What is something that you've witnessed or learned about more recently that has actually shaken you?
I don't know. I think people's resilience, which makes me hopeful. If they had told us a year ago that, September 2025, Iran would be a country that has gone through a war, would be, dealing with water shortage, electricity shortage, and all, it was even unimaginable back then. And you would have thought, or I would have thought, a country like that, people would, so there would be people carrying guns and killing each other. I'm exaggerating. I never thought that way, but there would be a national security issue, crisis, protests, and so on. There are things here and there. Human being is so resilient that war was going on, and still people could be funny, could do, maintain their habits. Some people moved here and there. They start, joking, and then they come back and start living their lives, and that's itself a way of survival. If you don't do those things, you have to commit suicide.
Yeah.
And that is, sad, but makes you hopeful that, and people live in Gaza still. People live in many other parts of the world, going through war, going through explosions, going through all those issues that were unimaginable a few years ago. Who would have thought 2025 would be like this?
And for yourself, Kaveh, Professor Kaveh Madani, how do you begin each day in this capacity now as this UN representative? Do you have little goals for each day that you want to set? Do you read a mission statement to yourself? I'm being serious. How do you measure the impact or success that you hope to have?
Very good question. So when it comes to Iran, and I talk to a lot of friends who are experts and they're very successful scientists in different fields, and they're concerned about Iran and its future, and they're caught in the political games, and they don't know what to do and how to respond, how to react. Do they get into trouble if they say something that is against the interest of one political side? They get attacked, and how things are these days. Yeah. I keep saying, and this is what I believe in, as long as we are not political figures and people, political activists, our mission and only goal should be a better quality of life for the Iranians. And if I have a solution to present, I should share that solution. That wants to be implemented by Ayatollah Khamenei, Reza Pahlavi, Maryam Rajavi, Pezeshkian, Jalili, whoever the Iranians pick and want and has the authority, has the ability to make the quality of life better for the Iranians, I'd be happy. And I should have the mission of sharing what I know and never be afraid of sharing it because that guy might implement it and I don't like that guy. I think that's something that I, at least as long as I'm under the UN flag, I would do. But under the UN flag, I should think beyond Iran, and I do so. A lot of us on our team are from the global south, and we keep talking about this at the office that we are the lucky ones. We are not the brightest. We are not the smartest or most capable of the Iranian population or Bangladeshi population and so on. We're the lucky ones. Circumstances, helped us get here. And now we are here. We have two choices. We become part of that system, those narratives that don't even make sense to me. They can be environmental narratives, left narratives, communist narratives, I don't know. Or we can use these platforms to advocate for the reality on the ground in those countries and say, yes, your concern about the environment is relevant and is legitimate, but if you want to help the Indian farmer, or if you want to get the attention and help of the Indians in the world, you got to respect and appreciate the problems they have too. So that's what we say, that we should not become part of the system like a cult, because in the environmental world we also have cults who just repeat.
It's a tough one when you talk about. To paraphrase or to summarize, you're saying the environmental imperative for you, that mission supersedes ideology, whoever the leaders are, whoever the regime is, and as you said, Khamenei, Reza Pahlavi, etc. I remember, you got to go back a while. It was right around the Iran-Iraq War. Sorry, not the Iran-Iraq War. The Iraq War that the America was involved in, and that some of us vociferously opposed that intervention. And I remember Bono and some of the high-profile rock stars were on this, had this campaign against poverty, particularly in developing countries, and Bono at that very time was taking meetings with George W. Bush, and I was so mad at Bono. I was thinking, why? What are you doing? Why would you be meeting with this guy who's, prosecuting this war that you and your band supposedly oppose and all of this stuff? And Bono's statement was, I'll meet with whoever it takes to deal with poverty, right? I don't know how I would feel about that now. At the time, I was mad, but it's a tough question, right? Because do you deal with the devil when you're, to do the work of the saint?
So I went home to help these,
yeah, you did.
It's a tough question, of course, and people, you can make. Define, speak about values. I think there are values that every one of us have, and there is a reality out there that, my thinking about, okay, we need an Iran to run, we need to save Iran, and for that I would stand by my values, right? And then they have invited me. I have a chance to go home and serve. There are protocols to follow, but there's also the value system that I have and I can follow.
They also arrested you.
And of course, it didn't work. But if that story, again, looking back, it was I was too. People can call me naive, stupid, dumb, for going back. But without the story of Kaveh Madani, a lot of people might have thought today that let's go home and help. Now, that experiment was needed to say, okay, we take this option off the menu. It's not going to work. Now, it's a tough one. Donald Trump is in the office. You don't like him, you like him. Joe Biden is in the office. You like him or you don't like him. Now, Joe Biden says, come and help me run the media, or Donald Trump does that. You have values, you have an objective, you go there. I assume I would do that. If Donald Trump asks me to go and do something, I mean, I might have conflict, I might have disagreements, but there is a reality of the world. He's an elected president of the richest country of the world. I mean, I hope I'm not offending the Chinese, and that guy has power, and it is possible to do things and may have influence from inside. I still think the most impactful period of my career has been the period that I worked in Iran, despite all those challenges that I had, because I was in the office, I had access to those
I think
people.
in the context of Iran, the argument would be these clowns in power, if they are the ones that are underscoring the environmental problems, and so to kind of go and try and work within that system, I mean, there are people who argue that if there is a regime change in Iran, it will immediately have a positive impact in terms of water and electricity and all of that, because there'll be more responsibility taken around those issues.
I mean, that's the illusion, right? So if there's no rain, yes, if there is no rain and the reservoir is empty, yes, let's say revolution happens in
of a drought.
Yeah, exactly. Like right. in spring in Iran, let's say Ordi Behesht, and so in May, June that happens, and it's not raining for the next few months. So then it's not raining. So you cannot promise that things would get immediately better. Immediately better, whoever says that is a lie, because it's chaos. It's going to be chaos unless there is but transitions are chaotic. So if you have seen history, if you have learned from it, so you don't know how this would happen. So it's delusion. But I know political campaigns. In political campaigns, if I'm a candidate, I'm going to make a terrible candidate for a presidential election. Hey, people, vote for me. I'm not going to fix the problem. Some of these damages are permanent, but in the long run, we would do better together. Who's going to vote for me to, if I promise that Iran would be a better place in 10, 15 years versus someone who says, like, tomorrow things would look better? It's unpredictable, but yes, you can argue that the current system doesn't have the courage to change course and radically and fundamentally change its development model. That's a good argument. That's an argument. Now the question is, how do you
can't change?
Can change or
cannot change. That
I mean, does not want to.
Does not want to, but I mean, by its very nature, is not built to kind of.
I mean, you'd be surprised that a lot of people inside the system are also very critical. The question is, but you become part of the corruption, you become part of the power game, you're part of the system, and then can you do that? Then that's the argument about, would I go and help Trump or Biden or this and that? Because if I'm part of that system and the system has set of rules that govern the system, then can I be a Superman there and change the system? Obviously not only in Iran, but also in the United States, Canada, elsewhere.
Are you liking the UN gig?
What is that?
Are you liking the UN gig?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you have to say yes, right?
No,
you can't say no. And
I like it. I mean, it is a bad time for the UN, right? It is like, we are getting attacked by many governments who are disappointed. We are also desperate.
No one's happy with the UN. Really.
No one is happy, of course. Yeah. I think the problem of the UN is that if everything is in order, no one would notice our existence. When things go wrong, then people start complaining, right? So we are in an era that international law doesn't have value. The Security Council has a particular structure; it cannot prevent a lot of problems, but still, the UN is the most powerful multilateral mechanism that we collectively have. Full of problems. Even the Secretary General says that. The question is, again, how do you change this? There's no way you can change it overnight. And the risk is that if you destroy it, then you might not have something better, and you might put the whole world on fire. Still, there are people who have respect for us. They see the UN passport and travel document, they might treat you differently. And there is some legitimacy.
But what about the need to be diplomatic? The need to, do you feel neutered at times that you can't be as outspoken, or is it almost easier?
Yeah, it's relevant to the question you ask. Like, would you meet with George W. Bush or Trump or So I have to shake hands and I have to say hi and I have to smile at people who I have problems with politically, or thinking about human rights violations and so on. But again, do I help the people of that country if I just don't talk to that person? Or is it better if I engage and start talking about it, right? Talking about problems or talking about different issues. So that's the diplomatic element of it, that we have to be, we would be in situations where you don't like that person, but then you have to do it. Even when it comes to Iran, I have to meet sometimes people, and if I have to, or have a conversation with someone, and some of those people are the people who jailed me, or So, but then again, if they're asking a question about water, in this position, I have to respond to that question, because Iran is a member state of the UN. And I think if it helps, part of my brain is, if they really have changed and are thinking about doing something about it, would it help the Iranians? And if yes, I should respond.
It's always an education talking to you, and always something that I enjoy doing. Thanks for coming in.
Likewise, and you asked too many tough questions.
Not at all. Not at all. I was saving the tough ones. Thanks for this, Kaveh.
Thank you.
Professor Kaveh Madani. Thank you. It's always good to have him on the show. Right, Super P? Always good to have him on there. It's a rewarding experience because he's such an oracle of information when it comes to, unfortunately, crises when it comes to water and electricity, et cetera, and the situation in Iran. And he's got this global role now. We're lucky to have him in the Greater Toronto area, but traveling around the world. Thank you to Kaveh Madani for being here. Give us your thoughts on this, either on any of our platforms in the comments section, or you can write us at info@rookmedia.com, info@rookmedia.com. For all things Rook related, you can go to our website, rookmedia.com. And remember that Rook Live 5 is live on October 2nd here in the Greater Toronto area. If you don't live around here, this is a good opportunity to fly in, see Toronto, come up to Richmond Hill, and check out Rook Live 5 with our amazing lineup. We're looking forward to it. Tickets are still available. We've just opened the balcony. The main floor is pretty much sold out, but maybe you can get tickets on the balcony. We'd love to have you there. All right, this is full time for Rook for today. Thank you to the amazing team who put this show together each week. Savvy, Roham Meher, Super P, Parisa, Sanjarani, Tina the photo and video queen, and the talented Anahita. Special thanks to Charming Kimia, the CK, Smart Pega, Methodical Kaveh, both working hard on Rook Live 5. Thanks to the TRK, the Rising Keon, for your help. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Do subscribe if you haven't done so already on any or all of our platforms. You can find the show on Instagram at Rook Media. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Gomeshi. And as ever, as you go through your day, do it this way. Make sure, as we say, Mizun Bashi.